Yeah, well, I'm getting onto that. That's Homer's Iliad, okay? It's a hell of a read, well, I like it. And what happens in terms of a lot of storytelling, or at least from, like a long time ago, people tended not to create new stories. That was the way it was. What happened was people would continue a story. They would add to it. They would refine it, enhance it, take pieces away, bring it more into touch with what's going on today. And I saw this book, this is years ago, and I looked at it, and I was curious about the front cover. It's called Ilum, which is another word for Troy, okay? And it was by Dan Simmons, who I'd never heard of, now one of my favorite authors. But I looked at this stuff, and it was like Ilum, and I thought, I love that, I love it. And I looked at the back, and it was all modernized, and it had been really brought up to date and beyond date, and out into the realms of a far future where quantum reality and gods created by quantum reality are there. And it was some wacky stuff, and I put off until one day I thought, well, it looks good and I've got nothing else to read, but it feels good, and like I haven't got any books, whatever reason. And I bought this book, and it was beautiful, and it had all like the themes that are for me really moving, and part of the Homer's Iliad, the Troy film. And this was all like brought into a very modern and futuristic context. And that's what happens with stories and continuations of them. So this is No Second Troy, again by Yeats. Why should I blame her that she filled my days with misery, or that she would of late have taught to ignorant men most violent ways, or hurled the little streets upon the great? Had they but courage equal to desire, what could have made her peaceful with a mind that nobles made simple as a fire, with beauty like a tightened bow, a kind that is not natural in an age like this, being high and solitary and more stern? Why, what could she have done, being what she is? Was there another Troy for her to burn? What do you make of that? So if you want to do an induction on your clients, read them 3 poems and they'll just... Quite a lot, both directly and indirectly, and the other way this weekend will be the focus of the unconscious. And that's a great word, your unconscious. And it's got a lot of different meanings, so I'm guessing your clients wouldn't necessarily want an explanation of what that is. Or they might, and you might want that too. Because it's one of those, well, an NLP geekinese, that's a great big nominalization, isn't it? It's an object, it's unspecified, blah, blah, blah. So in terms of a human being's body, that thing that you're mostly inhabiting right now, you've got whatever that is, right? You've got unconscious processes that go on. That thing that beats your heart, occasionally blinks your eyes, alters your blood pressure, digests food, repairs skin cells. Some unconscious processes. You've got other ideas of unconscious. It's the stuff that is your treasure trove of memories that you're just basically not aware of right now, but if you went to search for them, like your number plate, again, your PIN number, the first house that you lived at, you can recall all of that. It's in there somewhere. And you could also think about it in kind of like Freudian terms or slightly Jungian terms. The things that's happened to you or around you are fucking horrible and you've repressed them. That's another way to think about it. Going well, isn't it? Saturday morning. Learn all about your unconscious. And Erickson's very famous for saying, trust your unconscious, trust your client's unconscious. Bill O'Hanlon makes a really great distinction, and it's useful to have this. Because your unconscious might choose to use these things with a certain intention. That curly A means about. I just can't be bothered to write the word about, but I can say it. He's got 3 definitions. This is the one, right? Your unconscious is smart about the things it's smart about. For example, most people can drive here. You can get in the car and you don't need to think about it. It's a somatic memory, it's a muscular memory. That's another thing about unconscious. You could have that. You have body memories of things. If you play tennis, you don't really need to think too much about a serve or ping pong, or if you like to kick cats. You don't need to think about it. It's like when you go to walk, you don't need to have like a massive amount to learn how to remember, because you do it. It's all in the premotor cortex, the motor cortex. If you pick your nose as unconscious habit, or other people's, it's just up there before you know it. It's all right to laugh. That's an unconscious response. Well, your unconscious is great this morning. Now, turn it up. Don't get it out your system, just keep revving it. That's right. Sit there with your engine running. Like Muttley. That's it, lovely. You enjoy that. So that we've got things that it's smart to be smart about. For example, if you're a musician, you could just stand up and play your instrument, whatever that is. If you're a magician, you could just stand up and do tricks. It's basically stuff that you, through practice, through repetition, you know you're good at, and you don't need to think about it. That's the point. It's like an unconscious skill. It doesn't need a great focus of concentration. That's the first one. Dumb about what it's dumb about. It's always referring to the unconscious again. So, I think no one in here is a brain surgeon. Could be wrong. I'd give it a try. If, for example, someone said to you, okay, this person had a terrible head injury, on an operating table, don't do a gastric band on them. They need to have something done with their brain. Can you just pop in there with a pick, sort that bit out, boom. Because you haven't done that, probably, or trained in it, it wouldn't be a good thing just to like jump in there with, ha, I'll just let my unconscious do it. And I know where I'm going. So it's dumb about the things it's dumb about. So the things you haven't practiced, done lots about, you don't know about. It's that simple. You could practice these consciously, or like have a bit of a play in someone's brain if they were. Well, it wouldn't matter. They'd be sedated. You could be straight in there, but you wouldn't know that as a really well-developed skill. So it's dumb about the things it's dumb about. Here's the other one. Smart about some of the things it's dumb to be smart about. And this, for me, is somewhat of an illustration of that. There's no second try. So these what's going to fall in here is problematic behaviours, stupid behaviours. Pocket full of pens, yeah, it's great. So, for example, when people smoke, there's an addiction involved, there's a habit involved. And you may well know consciously it's not one of the best habits in the world. There's worse ones. That's right, angering people. But it's a learned pattern. They're like coping mechanisms. When people are seriously very, very confused about their reality, that's called psychosis. You know, like they're really off on one, like, woo! That's a technical term. It's not politically correct. They're really fucked up. And then the other side of that, sort of, you've got neurosis, which is what most people will be coming to see you for. It's stuff that you can address quite rapidly through your processes, your techniques. They still have problems, but they're not of a massively terrible and almost as bad as it can get mental category of problems. In between that, you've got a thing called borderline. So with borderline personality, people develop coping mechanisms quite young in their life due to their family. There's no other way around that. And this would tend to manifest with very problematic behaviours, often in relationships with other people, that are basically what they learned when they were quite young, and they're not helpful. You know, like, let's say, this is something I have some experience about. Say, for example, there's a load of good books on this as well. In a relationship, everything's hunky-dory, everything's loving, and boom, from nowhere, huge eruption, argument, shouting, temper, it could be physical, it could be doing something. That's not a good behaviour to have, but it's a learned response. So it's possible to de-anchor these things if you recognise them. So it's smart to be smart about the things you know unconsciously and are useful for you in some way. The things you don't know a lot about, and you know you don't know a lot about them. And then there's things that the unconscious is smart about, things it's really dumb to be smart about, which are all like your problematic behaviours, your addictions, ... So that's a kind of for the unconscious. Any questions so far? No. And these words in between, as, while, and, you can use them as a glue that'll put complex equivalences together. You see, the more you sit that way and allow yourself to learn easily, and you can learn easily, you've done it before, haven't you? Yes. The easier it will be for you just to start to put the things that you'd like to learn and help people to learn easily, and to start to trust your unconscious, because your unconscious is a good thing to trust, at least for you. And it is a good thing to trust. And if you trust your client's unconscious while you're working with them and enjoying deep states of opening and trance, if you really trust people have, and they do, an inbound and will come out as an outbound manifestation, but initially some sort of inbound ability to change and to trust people can change and to be there to help, they can. There's a real generative effect if you believe, or at least act as if, and there's a huge difference for me, that the clients that come to see you can change. I mean, from your own experience in your life, if you look back, there will be in your life people that have supported you, spotted you, believed in you, helped you along. And you might have drawn strength from that. It might have been the formation while you were learning and young of part of your beliefs. And those helpful parents we all have installed beliefs in us. So as a therapist working with people, I seriously invite you to believe that they can change. And in some good ways too. I went to there was a workshop by a guy called Bill O'Hanlon, who was one of Erickson's students. He was his gardener. He couldn't afford to pay to learn from Milton. He had the skills of a gardener, so Milton said something like, come along and mow the lawn and I'll teach you hypnosis. And he did. Exchange of energy. And on that workshop, and I know you love your metaphors, that was demonstrated as a pie chart, certain effects of how, and again, with being statistical, you're kind of on the average of this, of how certain therapists, or more precisely, how a client therapist and the client changed as a result of that interaction. And a huge, big old slice of the pie chart, massive. I think it was something like 40%. Could be wrong on that, but it's a statistic. About 40% was down to the relationship between client and therapist. That's called rapport. So someone could be technically, everythingly, a CAC therapist, that's a technical term, a CAC therapist, and not really helping someone change so much, maybe it's keeping them in their problem, or whatever, right? You can use your own imagination for that. And if that CAC therapist believed, could be in the realm of spiritual healing here, believed that that person was really going to make a change, that they were going to make a difference, something's going to change in their life, that has a massive effect on that client. So it's something to be aware of. Another word for this, which I quite enjoy and I remember, is to hold your clients with unconditional positive regard.
Do you interpret that as like mindfulness?
Which bit?
Like really being with the client, like giving 100% of yourself, and like truly listening.
Possibly.
That in itself is
Possibly.
really,
I mean, a tree can listen to a client, right? It's what comes back. There's something about that, it's about setting an intention as well.
You don't have to like a person to treat them with unconditional positive regard either, do you?
Me?
Or anyone.
There's
not the same thing. Saying
No.
You have to like everybody.
No. And some people you might not like. Fair enough, it happens. There's a useful distinction here. If you're making any sort, you know, our friend Baz here, he went lazy, fat, horse, whatever. That's kind of an interpretation or a judgment on behaviours. It's not the person. And it's very useful to keep that distinct in your own mind, to distinguish between behaviours and the person, because a person is not their behaviours. This is a total contradiction on logical levels. Massive. No, I don't think you would need to like someone to treat them with unconditional positive regard. And at the same time, if there was some like dislike there, or some judgy, which happens, that in some way is going to come out in you. And in some way that person's going to go, probably not consciously, because you're all NLP masters. You can lie to people for a living. You can seduce people and get them to give you your PIN numbers. You know, it doesn't matter. You give me your PIN. I haven't got your card. It's not a problem. Don't worry about it. Yeah. My PIN number.
If you can crack the PIN number, it's not that difficult to get people to me.
Tiz, have you seen people in supermarkets? It's like they've got a, oh, what a fucking joke. You've got a thing that big, a queue with 20 people, there's people trying to get by, and there's a thing that big either side. I mean, if you want to, you've got to do it like that. And there's people like going, he's looking at it. I'll give you my PIN number, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You haven't got my card, then you need to have both of them. And if I lost my card, I'm insured. So, a large amount of what you do, what you radiate out, really radiate out, is if you're congruent with some sort of well-formed, well-founded belief that your client can change, they're going to pick that up in some way. And it helps a lot. All clear so far? Yes? How wonderful. Wonderful. I believe it was on the last weekend of the Master Practitioner course. I was telling a story about Hetherington, about a horse. And I got a new horse story from Barry, which I hadn't heard, so I'm going to transmit this back to you. It's Hetherington's story. At some point, because he was probably a farmer, right, and he had horses, they were trying to pull by the bridle a horse into a horse house, a barn.
Stable.
A stable. Okay. He was small, trying to pull the horse. Tell you what, right?
No. He's got 15 minutes. very early days of people discovering.
Okay, let's see if we're telling the same story here. So he's pulling this horse into the barn, the stable, whatever friggin' is, at 15, like this. So someone was, not Ericsson. It was his dad, there you go. It was his dad when he was 15. Why don't you fucking tell it? No, seriously.
You nailed the detail of the story. That's it. Basically what it was his dad was trying to pull a horse into the stable or a barn, whatever, and he couldn't get it in, it just was stubborn trying to pull it back. And then what Ericsson did was walk around behind it and grab its tail and start trying to pull it the other way. So instead of going backwards, it decided to walk forwards, back into the barn. That was pretty much it.
Isn't that clever though? You know, if what you're doing's not working, do something else. So pull its tail. And I'd never heard that. The other Ericsson story about horses, I think this might have been when he was a bit younger, David. Just feel free to chip in at any point. He was out playing with his friends at his farm.
Beside the stable or the barn?
It would be the barn.
The horse house.
It was beside the barn, which was next to the horse house, going down to the kennels. Because they had a farm, right? They had animals that lived in little houses. And they were out playing with his friends, which were humans, doing stuff, right? And this horse, as it would, comes plodding along. And they'd never seen this horse before. They'd seen ones like it, but not this one. They made a distinction. They were calibrating. They didn't know they were doing that. So this horse comes on, and like a load of kids go, wow, look, new horse, where's it from? And Ericsson, very young, David, stands up and goes, I'm going to take this horse back to where it lives. Its horse house, its stable. And he goes, right. And his friends, well, how are you going to do that? You don't know where it lives. And he goes, haha, like this. And he went and did it. Now, that story, as far as I'm aware, comes from another story. Eric, this is good to know, okay? All of Ericsson's case notes are not necessarily true, but they're there to teach. One of the words you can really start to be putting into your own way of thinking, not necessarily when you're working with clients, is this idea about intention or purpose. They're kind of similar words. And it's about what you are hoping or attempting or purposefully setting out to accomplish with your clients through your behaviours and actions. It's a lot different to an outcome or a goal. And a useful way, at least for me, and the invitation is for you to think about it this way. Intention is something you want. It's like, I want this. And then you're going to have some actions, some behaviours, the how that gets accomplished. So intention is very much a conscious mind thing. You have some outcome, some destination in mind that you want to achieve, accomplish. A higher level purpose or intention. So the conscious mind in this model, and it is a model, your conscious mind's very good for organising things, putting things into hierarchies. Categories, types of. Generally, but I don't think always, a conscious mind will kind of think linearly. It's very good at logic. And the words that will tend to be used to give an indication of that linearity, straightness. I can't speak. Linearity, straightness of words like or, if, and then. You can equate these, if you like to make similarities, Neil, to kind of things. You know, you mentioned last week how you could say it's a bit like a parent, an adult, an ego. The language of logic and logistics is a bit like cause effects. If you do this, then this will happen. Or if you don't do it, that could happen. Cause effects. One thing necessarily causes another. And this is the way to set an intention. So intention or purpose is a conscious mind activity to say, this is what I want to intend, this is my intention, this is my purpose. And that's the what. Yeah.
How is that different from a goal?
From a girl.
A goal.
Yeah.
Give me an example of a goal. This is a great question, by the way, because this is about hierarchies of thought. So some goal, what?
I'm going to hit my target by the end of the month.
Okay. AOM, end of month. Now, if you do that, what will be the consequences of doing that? What do you get from that? What's actually going to happen from that? Or what is the purpose of this? Just to let you make it up. You don't have to give away your secrets of the business. Or your PIN number, Martin.
1, 2.
1, 2.
There's a reward for it.
Okay. Some reward, yeah. So I'm going to go back to that thing. You know, when people come to see you, I mean, they go, I want to stop smoking, or I want to lose weight, or I want to stop running away from my partner, I want to stop stealing cars. That's like their goal, their outcome. You say, okay, if you want to be a little bit provocative, that's not actually why you're here. Yes, it is. No, it's not. What do you actually get from that change in behaviour? So if you stop eating loads, what's actually going to happen? You might get fitter. We don't know. We're looking for some positive outcome of that. It's a chunking exercise. Instead of taking it to that little bit of face value, some goal in and of itself is meaningless according to Grinder. Kind of agree with that. It's what you get from that, or what changes as a result from that. So if this is a goal, if you want to chunk up, remember that exercise, a brilliant one from Chris Hall, means, purpose, value. For whatever the goal, what does this mean to you when you get it? What else does it mean to you? What else does it mean to you? So, right, would you like to come in? We're doing a hypnosis show. You sure? That would have been fun. So, if in terms of the goal, you can say, what does it mean? What is its value? What's the purpose? You're always like kind of chunking up to build a bigger generalization. You're not trying to restrict anything. So here's the thing. If this is the goal, the outcome to hit targets at the end of the month, someone says, well, what do you get from that? A reward. I would say, okay, what kind of reward? Because that's a generalization. You know what that means. It could be financial, it could be anything, right? You might get shares in the company. And you say, well, okay, if you got shares in the company, if you got more finance, what does that get you? So you can keep chunking up to get a much bigger generalization. And at the high end of these things, the bigger chunk, that's getting somewhere to intention and purpose. It's a distinction in logical types and hierarchies and classes, and that's essentially what the conscious mind is very good for. Oh, you're reading that? Okay. So we've got some outcome. That's the what we want. We've got some purpose, we've got an intention. How that happens, the suggestion is you can leave this up to the unconscious as the how. In hypnosis, we believe people have got access to vast resources, all of their skills in life, which could be transported from some area they're incredibly skilled at to one where they want to make a change. We've got all the resources we need and or can create them. Now, this idea about intention, consequence, if you like, or purpose and outcome, this is equivalent metaphorically to the guy on the horse with the reins. He wants to go somewhere, that's the what, that's the intention, and he leaves it up to nature or the unconscious, the horse. It knows exactly how to do it. And it kind of goes like this. At the start of a session or anything you're doing in your life in general, you know, like you don't have to make like a shape of something and put a border around it. You can put this and transfer it to any context you want. If you have some goals or outcomes, and you do this in hypnosis, or you do it in a way where you can get a fully congruent signal back from your body. This is the idiomotor signal stuff. We're going to do this in a bit. We're going to set up unconscious finger signals, little yeses and nos. And the whole idea is they are genuinely unconscious. You don't do anything consciously. It's important to get your clients to understand that. And I'll show you how we do that. So you can, as a programmer, and I think this is where it comes from in neuro-linguistic programming, you can program directly with the person's unconscious. So you can say, and I want you to discover that the behaviour that is a problem has a positive intention. Do you understand? And you get a finger signal of this. And it's very, very important in the processes that we'll be doing a little bit later on, that your client fully and completely and consciously understands that we don't want any conscious involvement. And I'll give you examples of that later, but you can forget about that. Are you all happy with the definitions of idiomotor response or an honest unconscious response? That's good. Can I borrow a couple of people to do a demo, and the demo is just to elicit unconscious responses, nothing else? Have a chair either side, please. Have a seat. So this is kind of pretty much what I do with clients when I'm using this method. I tell them you've got conscious mind, unconscious mind. And I go through the same framing that I've set up this morning. I give a description of what unconscious behaviours, movements are as opposed to conscious ones. And I make sure that's they understand. And I split stuff as well, but we'll get on to that. So if I start to talk about conscious behaviours, I say, oh, you've got conscious behaviours such as you can think consciously, right? If I ask you what your registration is, you can remember it. And if they do that, I know they can. It's an unconscious response to a conscious question. And I say, you know, I could ask you consciously to lift your arm up, and can you do that? And they do that. I'm doing this all on this side or that side. It doesn't make any difference. But I'm starting to use the language of consciousness, whatever that means, and gesturing with it on one side. Then I'm going to say, okay, you've got unconscious stuff as well, like your heart's beating right now. Your cells are growing or dying, your hair is. And that's unconscious, and there's other things that are unconscious too. You know what that means, unconscious. For example, there's a part of your body that's regulating your blood pressure. There's something in your body quite likely digesting and making use of the last thing you ate. And that's unconscious. You don't need to think about it, your body will just do it. Do you understand? Yes. So it's called splitting or depotentiating. You don't need to know, but you can forget about it. You can have an amnesia for this if you want, and it'll come back later. Amnesia is an unconscious process. It's lush, that. It is, isn't it? Have you ever come in and like you've got a set of house keys, right? And you know you've had them in your hand. I've done this before loads of times. You've dropped one. You've got something in your hand, it's your keys, and you flip from room to room, find yourself in our room, not knowing why near. Is this just me, or does this happen to other people? Find yourself in a room, right, and you're there, and I think, I don't know what I'm doing. I just stop. Pattern's interrupted. Then I'm like, I had keys, shit, I was meant to be going, And you've got to backtrack all those steps. You know you've put them somewhere, and the harder you try to do that, the more conscious involvement. Find the keys, find the keys, find the keys, find it. Can't find them, can't see them anywhere. And then when the conscious effort stops, poof, you're probably standing next to them, or you remember. Bit like that thing when someone's name's on the tip of your tongue. The harder you try, it's gone. So I make sure people understand the difference between conscious and unconscious response. I say, what I'm going to do in a minute or two, I'm going to ask you to just sit such, come, you know, like the hypnosis position, that one. The comfortable one for inducing neck strain and stretching the lower vertebra. So I get people to sit upright. I say, what I'm going to do, I will touch you at some point on your hand or your finger, or it may be your thumb, or I might not touch you at all because you'll respond just perfectly. But if you don't respond as an honest unconscious response, I might just reach over and touch your finger, just to teach your unconscious responses. But you know what that means, right? And if someone nods, they know what that means, because they do. Head nod's an unconscious response. It's a genuine one. We're taught to do it quite, oh yes, no, yes. So before, you know, you could ask someone a question, right? Go up to someone and say like, do you know where such and such is? And they'll go, you can see their answer before you hear it, sometimes. But forget about that, more amnesia. So for this, what we're going to do, or what you're going to do, I'm going to invite you to go into a trance in a minute, whichever way is right. And it's really important, this. I'm going to invite your unconscious, and the mind part, or the body, to give me an honest, that's a good word to use, an honest and genuine unconscious response. So I'm starting to demonstrate it. A lot of people, it'll just be that finger, it might be their thumb, it might even be that arm starts to lift. This is all framing. You're giving people examples of what will happen ahead of time, okay? And then, you know, like the unconscious mind, oh, okay, this looks fun. So like, what I want you to do is to give an honest yes response. You know, like the same way you nod your head, yes. Well, I'm going to invite one of your fingers, and I don't know which one it is. I don't even know which hand it is. But at some point, I'm going to ask your unconscious to demonstrate an honest and unconscious response. And a lot of people will just lift their finger like that for a yes response. And it's as simple as that. That kind of thing's not, you know, if it's a conscious movement, that's not an unconscious response. And if you see that, you go, no, don't do that. Allow your unconscious to move your finger. So all we're looking for is to set up a set of signals, which is all it is. It doesn't have to be a finger. Someone could do that. The first time you see this, laugh. It'll be such a beautiful rapport with your client. It could be anything. Now, you can also tell your clients that, in fact, I might not be able to see that response. It could be a sensation of temperature. If you're aware of that, you can come out of trance momentarily and tell me. However, most people tend to get it straight away in one of their hands. So this is all we're doing. When you're ready, close your little eyes. Be aware of you're in this room with many of your colleagues and friends that are budding hypnotherapists. As you can think about that and think about everything we've done this morning, you don't need to be aware of your breathing and how comfortable it is. You're going to hear the sound of my voice. And you don't need to try to go into a trance at all. You can simply do what you do. Aware of the sounds in the room, the position of your hands and fingers, and your elbow, and both foot on the floor. And while you do that, I know you've been in trance before, and I know your unconscious mind can learn and listen in many ways. And I'd like to invite your unconscious mind, not the conscious one, the one where you think consciously about thoughts, that can just drift off. That intelligence, that's part of your wisdom body, and your unconscious. And because your unconscious is an intelligence, a sophisticated intelligence, in trance, it's often, more often than that, we're dealing with the unconscious mind. And in order for you to have an experience where you know it is your unconscious mind doing the work, Even though you can listen consciously and unconsciously and feel whatever you feel, your unconscious mind can communicate with an honest, unconscious response that can let you know your unconscious can communicate by giving an honest yes response. And that honest yes response that's from your unconscious mind can generally just be a simple and honest unconscious finger movement. And if your unconscious understands this, I'd like your unconscious to demonstrate for you so you can be aware of that by lifting a finger or a thumb. And I don't know which finger or thumb will lift. I don't know what thumb, what fingers, or how you'll first be aware that it's your unconscious mind that can signal yes by lifting a finger. And I'd like your unconscious to demonstrate, lifting a finger to demonstrate a yes response. An honest, that's right, honest, full, unconscious response. And you don't know which finger's starting to lift. Or maybe you can feel your finger lift. And to demonstrate a full response, that's right. So you know, Ruth, and you know, Barry, that finger is your unconscious response to a yes. That's very good. Thank you for that. Now, as well as, and this is just for a demonstration, I tend not to do this, because your unconscious mind is an intelligence in its own right, it has the ability and the right to say no. So I know your unconscious has demonstrated a yes response. I'd like to invite your unconscious now to select a different finger or hands to demonstrate a no response. So I'd like your unconscious, by lifting a different hand or finger, to demonstrate an honest, unconscious no response. That's right, Barry. And I wonder which finger or something else can be an honest unconscious demonstration of a no response. That's right, a full no response. Very good. So both of your unconsciouses, and I'd just like to check, I'd like to invite again your unconscious to demonstrate an honest yes response. An honest yes response, that same yes response. That's right. That's perfect. And again, just to be sure, I'd like to invite your unconscious to demonstrate again that no response. The same no response. That's right. Very good. So I'd like to thank both your consciouses and your unconscious intelligences. And as you come back to a state of the more usual awareness, you really can come back feeling even better, more alert, more energized, in ways that are really useful for you. There you go, coming back. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Any questions? Stunned mullets.
Yeah, kind of sort of mainly embedded command and that. Kind of going with myself, like I think that was that was so.
Yeah.
Did you feel researching or?
No, I very quickly knew which finger, but I didn't consciously move it. I just had to wait until it's almost like there was an energy within those places already which was willing it, and just to be patient and wait. That was my experience. Yeah.
You'll
I
see.
could have if I wanted to.
Oh yeah.
I knew that's possible, but I very quickly knew where it was. So,
If you see what looks like a deliberate move, say no, no, no. This is straight from Bandler, not that mind, the other mind, the other mind. If you think it's conscious, stop. Because you want your client, you want them to be responding to what you say, not anticipating.
Almost like a twitch rather than movement.
Yeah. You'll see it's a tiny little thing, or it could be that.
How can you be sure? I don't want to put the cat on the screen, just I've seen that much on the internet about people saying, well, is it really an unconscious response, or is it because of embedded command or whatever? Eventually somebody will go along with it.
This is a good question. You've got to differentiate between what you mean between an honest unconscious response and whether someone will go along with it. The only way I think you could know for sure is if you can do tests. Psychologists do this, neurologists do this thing. You wire someone's head up. No, you put receptors on their head. That will detect and measure brain activity. And you have them sit up or lie down, and you say, right, lift your right hand. And they do, and they get like the picture, a map of the electrical activity in the brain. You say, lift your left hand, get a map. Lift your right hand, get a map. Lift your left hand, get a map. And then you go, lift a hand. And they have to choose. There's no context now anymore. And those electrical maps of the brain, if you like, of activity, if you overlay them, the one where there's conscious volition, and that's choose which hand to lift, there's a different part of the brain lights up as well as the parts that are involved in the motor stuff. That, I think, is the only way. The other way is calibration. That's the only way. And as long as it works, it's good. Other questions? Does that answer your question? Not really. Oh, okay. That's tactful, as best as it can. Not down and let's talk about your problem. oh, okay, that's bad, I feel bad, you feel bad. You just get in there and do it. But that's the kind of stereotype of a lot of counsellors, a lot of psychoanalysts. And I know some brilliant counsellors. I know some brilliant CBTers that don't just use CBT. So yeah, Bandler was, well, Bandler's Bandler, and he's the Lord B. Yeah, keep a sense of humour. Any other questions about that? Yeah.
Got two women subjects there.
Yeah?
And they responded very well.
Yeah.
You started off by saying that you might touch or whatever. So what would happen there?
Oh, that's a good question. What if it doesn't work? Can I borrow a hand? Put that there. Okay, this is a yes response. This is a yes response. Does your unconscious understand? Demonstrate it. So you teach the muscle. That's one way to do it. Thank you. And you can go further, convince us. There's, I was going to call you Jerry there, I don't know why. It'll be, hang on, it's that, isn't it? Gordon, got your name right. Gordon's going to do some other stuff and John's going to do some convince as well. You can do all this. I've never ever had this not work yet. I'm sure it will not work at one point. I've never had it not work. There's something about setting your intention that this is going to work. And at the same time having no attachment to whether it works or not. It's a game. And as well, if your client's there, why would you want to, you know, if they're resistant, you say, what's going on? What are you really here for? So most of the time your client is there willingly, they haven't been dragged along, and not very often. Anything else on this? What I do as well, and I did it there, I get the signal to repeat. That way there's no ambiguity in the system. If you just do it once, okay, so what? Repeat that. So you've tested it. You've now set up something that's been tested and you've repeated it. This is the yes signal for this session. When I do this with myself, I do not get a yes response in the same place the next time I do it. I just make a request of my unconscious, whatever that is, to give me a kinesthetic yes response. I always go for movement. This is Grinder's stuff. Always got to be a kinesthetic response. None of this words in the head stuff, none of this saying colours. You can all speak in your head really well. You can do it easily. You can imagine a pink ball, a blue ball, a yellow triangle for a yes response. I insist on a kinesthetic yes response. A non-conscious movement. That's physical. That could be a sensation of warmth. I've seen people like go red on their neck. They can't see it, but you can. Anything that's a physical response is good as far as I'm concerned, because it's much harder to recreate that. You know if you move your finger, you know if it moves unconsciously. You can feel that and you can detect it. But it's so easy to have a yes response, that's yes on the inside of your head. You can do this all day long. That's not an honest unconscious response. And I couldn't see that. So you can get a report from your clients. Were you aware of anything else? Or what else were you aware of in addition to that?
I noticed that you went over your hands like that and then like that. And I just wanted to know what the reason for that is.
I was pointing them out for the people who might not have seen the finger movements at the back.
I wasn't sure if it was about energy or something like that.
No, what you can do though, there's everything right with this. When you see the unconscious response, you go, that's right, reach out and touch, that's totally fine too. It's like saying that's right, you're like, that is right, well done. I use the word your unconscious is an intelligence, a sophisticated intelligence in its own right. It is. That's kind of massaging the unconscious of it. How else? Use what for? Oh, I'm going to get onto that. We'll get the whole technique in a bit. But this is basically the most of you have done 6-step reframing. It's traditionally, I think even on a lot of NLP courses, so taught as it's chair therapy. I have the part that speaks and you have the part. I'll never do that. I've never done it with a client. Or have I? I might have done years ago. But the kind of 6-step reframing that this is, it's grinned as M step. There doesn't have to be. M's a variable. Could be 3 steps, could be 6. If you're really loose with the process, it could be 20. Doesn't matter. But at every critical point on that process, you get an unconscious verification. There's no verbal. And we cut out that part of it. So it's all programmed with the unconscious by this, by that, whatever the unconscious yes response is. But we'll get to that later. Have an amnesia for that. Have 2. Any other questions on this? Why did you laugh? Because it was funny? Good. Right, what? No, go on, amnesia. Do you want to share it? Fair enough. Would you like to say anything about the process?
To be honest, like, you know, like when you were saying unconscious, I was trying to keep my finger down. I could feel it like trying to go up, and I was trying to keep it down to make sure that it wasn't conscious of doing it. And it was, like I said, it was like a shock going up there. I don't know.
You can really stress to your clients, don't try and move anything. Just let it happen. Let it happen. Let it happen. And you might be surprised which finger moves first. This is all presupposition language, setting stuff up. See, I don't know whether it'll be a little finger that moves first or even which hand. It could be the finger after that. What does that mean? I don't know. But there's a constant presupposition that it will be a finger that moves, and I don't know which one it'll be yet. You could. If it's an unconscious head nod, that's good. But you understand head nods, right? Yeah, of course you do. That's an unconscious response. But I think this is a bit more of a convincer than that. But I mean, you want to be calibrating that stuff, definitely, because it's an honest thing. Most of us don't have to go yes and then remember to shake our head. You don't, do you? Your head just nods. Well, when you go, yeah, it's like that's that natural thing. Everyone's not nodding my head, neck muscles. Don't nod.
In terms of intention, your head's a really big part of, when you're talking.
It's a huge part of me. Yeah.
Most people use the head as a gesture.
Yeah. Well, they do. You've got to notice stuff like this. So, find someone you want to work with. Hold on a second before you go stampeding off like a small herd of Hypnotherapy. You've got several rooms here to work and you've got 4. Stay off the corridors. They're haunted. Things will happen to you. Find someone you want to work with and induce a trance, but frame it first. Tell them what you're going to be. Tell them like they've got no idea. Tell them like they're your client and explain in metaphors or stories or in plain English. Lift your finger and they'll go, yeah, can you lift your finger? And they'll do that. I go, that's a conscious movement. Just want you to relax your hand and allow, whatever. You've got to frame this in your own words. Well, you've got the intention of what the exercise is, right? How it happens will just happen if you let it. Trust your unconscious just to come up with the right words, presupposing a finger will move, and get a yes response. Verify that yes response. The same one, okay? Because when you use this later on, you don't want any ambiguity. It might just be someone does that on the right-hand side. That's great. They've just made an imaginary dividing line here. Repeat that. You've got it. The other one will probably be that side. Probably. Or it might be the top half of the body that moves or the bottom half. You don't know. This is what you can, to amplify it if it doesn't work the first time. Your whole body's a crystal, a pendulum. All of this stuff's just amplifying what's already there. So repeat, verify. Is there anything else? Yeah, enjoy it.
See, I can't remember anything except me.
Good. It'll, as Bandler says, it's installed unconsciously. It'll just come out. You know what to do, right? By getting an unconscious response. Things don't become true unconscious responses unless they're already there and they're getting channeled or you build up and practice. None of this, it's just in there unconsciously. Maybe it is. We don't know until it's verified, so you do it again. Because you want no ambiguity in the system. You're going to use this process to get unconscious agreement and volition to change something and then future pace it. All of this is an unconscious confirmation that stuff's happened. An honest one, as opposed to something else. But forget about that. Find someone you want to work with. You can do the first part of the element induction. You can do any induction you want. You can just talk to someone and say, you can keep your eyes open in trance and do this. But forget about that too. Forget about forgetting about things. Pick what's the time? Who's got a watch on? 25 past 12. I think it would feel to me you've got time to do 2 rounds of this. So have 2 rounds. If you finish really early, the suggestion is do it again. If it's so easy, do it again. Get a different unconscious response. So all you're doing here is inducing trance, inviting unconscious signals, verifying them, and then saying, come back, come back. That's it. Any questions? Yes, David.
When you say you have the option to do it twice, do you mean each person does it twice a day? Each person facilitates it twice a day?
No, once.
Once each?
Yes, to do it twice. Roughly. So you've got plenty of time, because you might want to practice a bit of the induction stuff, because this is actually quite quick. It really is. Intention, elicit unconscious response, verify, enjoy. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. What label?